Welcome back to episode 3 in my Shoe Chat Sundays series. Today we're talking all things beginner runner shoes. In the first few episodes of this series, I talked about tempo shoes with Aubrey Running, and in the last episode on the channel I talked with Kofuzi about all things race day in terms of carbon shoes. But today we're taking it back a little bit to when I was a beginner runner back in 2019. I was scrolling on my camera roll and I managed to find some photos of me in my first pair of running shoes, which was back in Stockholm. I was running in the Gel Cumulus from Asics, and I did literally everything in that shoe, from 5k park runs, my easy runs. I even did some interval stuff on the track, and it was the shoe that I used for all of my running when I got into the sport about 5 or 6 years ago. So today's video's purpose is to hopefully help people who are just starting in their running journey when it comes to picking their first running shoes based off my expertise and knowledge, if you like. Since getting into running, I've got into the shoe review space and I've tried probably around 200 pairs of running shoes since I started. So I feel like I've got some good knowledge to hopefully share with some beginner runners out there when it comes to picking your first shoe. So one thing I've also done with this series is started a broadcast channel over on my Instagram where I ask for people's input in future episodes. One thing I asked going into today's episode is if you could send me a picture of you running in your first pair of running shoes. Tell me what that pair of running shoes is, and also what year you were running in. So before we get into any of my suggestions, I thought I would jump into the broadcast channel over on Instagram and show you some of the interesting shoes people have submitted, and I'll give you a little bit of a rating, my thoughts and opinions on their first shoes, because I found it quite entertaining having seen some of the shoes people were sending in. So let me jump on to the broadcast and go through some of my favorites. The first entry was from Beth, and she sent in a picture of her running back in 2017 in a pair of New Balance 1080 V8. Now I think we're on to version 14, maybe even 15 now of this shoe from New Balance. So it's impressive to see the version 8. She also sent in a photo from the Barcelona half marathon 3 years later where she's wearing the same shoes and coincidentally the same leggings from the first photo 3 years before. So yeah, impressive longevity there from the New Balance 1080. Obviously got plenty of grip there. And I like the colorway actually, blue and pink. I'd give that shoe a 7 out of 10 as a first running shoe. A solid pick there from Beth. Moving on to Connor. He's running here in the Nike Pegasus 37 back in 2022. And I know Connor has now run under 15 minutes for the 5K. So he's a guy who's made some quick progression. And he did everything in his first few years as a runner in the Pegasus 37. The Pegasus from Nike, as you may or may not know, is a great first-time runner's shoe. Next, we have Adam here in the Nike Lunar Pix. Not a shoe that I'm very familiar with, but he was running in it in 2016 and 2017, which is before I was a runner myself, hence why I've probably not heard of this one. But yeah, an interesting looking shoe. It's got sort of like a sock-like upper that then transitions into a running shoe. I'm not sure if looks-wise it's for me, but I'm sure it served him well. The next one's from Matt, also known as the Welsh Runner. If you're not familiar with the Welsh Runner here on YouTube, then you should go check him out. But here he is running in 2015 in the Nike Lunar Glide in a nice green colorway. Interesting lacing system on that one. Can't say I'm a fan of that colorway personally, but if they worked for Matt back then they worked for him. And he said he used them in the gym and then he started running in 2015. So I guess he had a pair of shoes that he would primarily use when he was working out, and then he got into running. But I've got to give those, I reckon, a 3 out of 10. Don't think they were going to be the best running shoes, but I guess they were all he had at the time. Mike here, a newer runner, started running in 2024, and he's running in a pair of the Nike Downshifter 13. Not a shoe that I've personally tried, but a nice clean colorway there. They're a decent price point as well, so give that a solid 6 out of 10. Moving on to Ernest here, running in 2022. So a relatively new runner, 3 years ago, running in one of my favorite daily trainers, the On Cloud Monster. Such a good shoe. It doesn't feature, however, in my lineup for beginner runners because it is a little bit on the more expensive side. So I think maybe not quite as affordable for some. And finally, the last entry is from Scott, running the Paris Marathon back in 2016 in a pair of what looks like some very low stack New Balance, very impressive running. I don't think I would want to run a marathon in those shoes, but maybe back then there wasn't these high carbon stack shoes. So yeah, credit for Scott for getting around in those. And I also quite like the green colorway. I would give those an 8 out of 10. A solid pick, but yeah, you're going to need a little bit more cushioning underfoot if you ask me. Before I go into my picks, I asked over on Instagram, what were you looking for when you were buying your first pair of running shoes? And the theme that came up very frequently was price point. It needs to be fairly low so that you're not spending hundreds of pounds on your first pair of running shoes. After all, it's a sport you're only just getting into. Versatility was another thing. You want a shoe that you can do all of your running in, from your easy runs, your intervals, and also use on race day. You also need a shoe with plenty of cushioning. As somebody who's new to running, your body may not be as used to the impact related side of running as, say, a more experienced runner. So I expect your first pair of running shoes, you're going to want to have plenty of cushioning underfoot, unlike Scott back in 2016. And also you want something that is somewhat stable. So those were the 4 categories that came up time and time again when it came to picking your first running shoes. So I've taken that into consideration to my picks. According to a poll I also put out on my Instagram, I found that 38% of runners were willing to spend about 80 to 100 pounds on their first pair of running shoes, and 36% of people said that they would be willing to spend 100 to 120. So these were the 2 options I gave that were voted for the most, and I've used that to sort of tailor this video into 2 categories of shoes, if you like. The first being on a budget around that £100 mark, and the second slightly more of an investment at around £130. Now, I am aware there are some running shoes on the market that set around £60 or £70, but I've decided not to include those in my video today, just because I feel from my testing, there's some shoes on the market that if you spend a little bit more money, closer to that £100 mark, you get a much more premium product and a shoe that's going to last ultimately a lot longer than some of the cheaper options that are out there on the market. All of the running shoes that feature in today's video are listed down below in the description and are available at today's sponsor, ProDirect Running, who are an online retailer. I'm very lucky to have them on board supporting this series. They've provided all of the shoes for testing, and it just allows me to share my completely unbiased opinion without being linked to one sponsor. And as you'll see in today's video, I'll share both the good and the bad of each shoe and recommend which shoe is going to be best for certain types of runners. So all I ask in return for today's piece of content that is free here on YouTube is that you consider using the links down below at ProDirect Running. Before I go into my suggestions, I asked my followers what shoe they would recommend to a beginner runner. And first up we had Molly, who happens to work in a running store in London, and she recommended the New Balance 1080, which is a great option. I didn't include that in my list because I think maybe it's slightly higher in terms of price point than many runners would want to spend. Simon said the Puma Velocity Nitro. Now that definitely ticks the affordable option, but I actually chose a different Puma shoe in my lineup. And another couple of shoes that came up time and time again were the Adidas Evo SL as well as the Asics Nova Blast, which does also feature in my lineup. So we've heard some suggestions from my followers over on Instagram. Now moving on to my picks. And the first category of shoes are on a budget. So all of these shoes sit around the £100 price point, and I think will be perfect for somebody looking for their first pair of running shoes. Up first, we have a shoe from Adidas called the Boston 12. Now, the Boston 13 just got released, which means the Boston 12 is now heavily discounted. And that's a top tip, I would say, for picking up running shoes as a beginner, is always look for maybe the previous version of a shoe that was very well reviewed. And the Boston 12 is one of those shoes. It comes in at £97.99 at the moment, and in some colorways under the £90 mark. Some key stats about the Boston 12. We have 38mm of stack height in the rear, dropping 7mm to the forefoot. It weighs 267 grams, and it features a dual density midsole with light strike rods. Now for new runners, that's a bit of a mouthful, but in short, what this shoe is very good at is versatility. It's a shoe that sort of has the race day feel in terms of being able to pick up the pace in my training, but also is perfect for those easy days as well because of that dual density midsole. It can handle a wide range of paces. The downside to the Boston is it's maybe not quite as comfortable as some of the other shoes that are coming up in my suggestions, and I would recommend this to somebody who's looking for a shoe that they can train in and then feel comfortable racing in as well because of its versatility. Next up, we have the Mizuno Neo Vista. Now, this is one of my favorite running shoes from last year. Again, a new version has just come out, but that cost £160, whereas the old version is now discounted to £105, which now makes it an incredibly good option for a completely beginner runner. Now, if you're looking for a fun, versatile shoe, this is a great option. But going into some key stats, there's 44.5 millimeters of stack height at the rear, so a very high stack height in this one, dropping 8 millimeters. It weighs 265 grams and it features a nylon plate, which means, again, just like the Boston 12, it can be incredibly versatile for a wide range of activities in terms of running. It's good things. It's an incredibly fun shoe that's also capable of doing lots of different types of runs. So as I was saying, you can do easy runs, interval work, longer runs. The downsides to this shoe is it offers a very, very soft midsole, which is really nice to run in, but that does mean it's not necessarily the most stable of running shoes for new runners. So compared to, say, the Boston and the Adidas Supernova Rise, it's not quite as stable as those shoes. But I would recommend this shoe to anyone looking for comfort. You're not going to find a shoe that's more comfortable than a Neo Vista, and also plenty of cushioning underfoot for protecting you when you're new to running from the impact. And the third shoe I have in the sort of on a budget category is this one from Adidas. This is called the Supernova Rise 2, and it's currently available for just under £104, which I think, again, is a great option for new runners. In terms of stats, we've got 36 millimeters of stack height. Again, plenty of cushioning, dropping 10 millimeters. It is slightly heavier than the other shoes, but only just at 275 grams, and it features support rods and a midsole called Dream Strike, which is basically a new PIBA midsole from Adidas that they're putting into their daily trainers, which is why I think I like this shoe so much. So going into the good things, I would say that this shoe offers the Goldilocks of midsoles when it comes to new runners in terms of having the right balance between the level of cushioning, the bounce, and also the stability. It just seems to work really well for all foot strikes, and because it has some support rods in there, there's also some stability features in this shoe that can help newer runners out. The downside to this one is it's sort of less known in the running shoe space. It's often overlooked by shoes like the Boston and the Evo SL, which is coming up a little bit later in this video. I think if more people got their foot in this as new runners, they would really benefit from giving this one a go. I'd recommend this shoe to anyone looking for a workhorse of a shoe that they can trust for miles and miles. There's really good durability on the outsole with this one, and I think, yeah, an ideal shoe for beginner runners. Moving on to three more shoes that I put into a category called more of an investment. Now, these shoes sit around the sort of £120, £130 price point, so a little bit more expensive, but I think they offer a few more features than maybe the other shoes didn't that may be worth investing in if you're looking for a slightly more premium option. So the first shoe that I would like to talk about is this one from Adidas. It's called the Evo SL, and of all the running shoes in today's video, it's the shoe I've used for the most amount of miles. I think I'm nearly at 300 miles in this, which was a white pair of shoes originally. Absolutely love this shoe, and I would go as far to say as it's changed the sort of running shoe space in terms of price point, because it comes in at £130. So not super cheap for a new runner, but considering what this shoe has to offer, it's very, very good in terms of price for performance. So the Evo SL, it has 39 millimeters of stack height, dropping 7 millimeters. It's the lightest of all the shoes in today's video at 224 grams. And it features Adidas' most premium midsole, the Light Strike Pro, but in a daily trainer, which is why I think this shoe is so special. So the good things about this shoe is it outperforms any other shoe on the market at this £130 price point. The downside is to this shoe is it has this little tongue that sometimes gets a little bit sort of crinkled on top of the foot. That's the only thing I could think of in terms of a downside, which could be improved with a gusseted tongue, maybe moving forward. But I would recommend this shoe to anyone looking for sort of a more premium feeling shoe, but not the premium price tag. So say if you're looking at a carbon racing shoe like a Pro 4, but you don't quite have the £200 to invest in one, then the Evo SL is going to give you a similar feeling to a carbon shoe that you can use in your daily trainers, but for almost half the price point. Up next, we have the Puma DVA Nitro 3. Again, this is a shoe that's been discounted down to £120, which makes it great for that sort of beginner category. In terms of stats, it weighs 265 grams. It offers 39 millimeters of stack height in the rear, dropping 10 millimeters, and it features a carbon infused plate, which make it great for some speed work. I actually recently recommended this shoe to a friend of mine who was looking for a shoe that he can use more on their tempo runs, but also use on race day. Shout out to Johnny if he's watching this. He probably isn't, but he picked up this shoe and he's really getting on well with it. So the good things about this shoe, it's very versatile. It's a fast feeling shoe with that carbon infused plate, and because it has some of the best grip around, I've done around 100 kilometers in this shoe and it still looks pretty fresh out the box in terms of durability, is that it will last forever. Puma grip is really, really good in terms of durability. The downsides of this shoe is because it does feature that carbon sort of infused plate, is it doesn't feel so comfortable at super easy sort of recovery paces. The carbon plate is not necessarily ideal for those easy runs, and I wouldn't recommend it for new runners for every single run, that's for sure. But I think I'd recommend it for someone who's looking for, again, a shoe that they can do their interval training in, their tempo work, and also race in at a very affordable price point now at £120. And the final shoe that I would recommend in this sort of more of an investment category is the Asics Nova Blast. Now, for the purpose of this video, imagine this is the Nova Blast 5, but it's actually the Nova Blast 4, because long story short, I met a lovely guy when I was training in Kenya who didn't have access to any decent running shoes. So I was training out in the Nova Blast 5. He was the same size feet as me, and I left him them shoes when I came home from Kenya. So they're out there on the dirt road, still getting plenty of use. But here is the previous version, the Nova Blast 4. But anyway, Nova Blast 5 cost £135. So of all the shoes in today's video, it is the most expensive. But I think what this shoe has to offer sort of warrants that price point as a slightly more premium shoe. Key stats, I've not listed any. I've got nothing written here. Bear with me a second. In terms of stats, this one weighs 255 grams and it has 41.5 millimeters of stack height in the rear, dropping 8 millimeters. And it features what Asics like to call the FF Blast Max midsole, which is one of my favorite midsoles in a daily trainer in terms of bounce. It's a very fun shoe to run in. One of the downsides is it's not necessarily as suited to faster running, say like the Puma is, because it doesn't feature a plate. It has a very soft midsole that is slightly less stable at faster speeds, I would say. So I wouldn't personally want to do any intervals in it, but I would recommend this shoe to somebody who's primarily looking for an easy run shoe with the ability to pick up the pace, maybe towards tempo runs, and yeah, offers a very fun, exciting ride. Next up, I'm very excited to introduce Andy from the Forest of Dean runner, or the FOD runner, here on YouTube. We're going to have a little discussion about his first running shoes, as well as what running shoes he would recommend to beginners. I'm interested to hear his thoughts because Andy, like myself, has reviewed plenty of running shoes over the years. He's actually been making YouTube videos on the platform since 2015. So yeah, 1.5k uploads. This guy is super dedicated when it comes to YouTube. One of my favorites on the platform and a guy I looked up to when I was starting out my own YouTube channel way back in 2019, something like that. So yeah, here is Andy from the FOD runner, and we're going to discuss the best running shoes for beginner runners. Hello mate, how you doing?
I am good. Thank you very much for having me on today.
Not a problem. How's your day been so far? You been out for a run?
Yeah, got the run done this morning. Got a 10k race in a couple of days time, so it was kind of a long run, but I stripped the intensity out this week, so I'm keeping the mileage high as I'm kind of like in pre-marathon training, should we say. So still getting some good volume in, but limited intensity, heart rate nice and low, temperatures have come down a little bit. It was a good one.
I just wanted to say before we jump into a few questions on beginner running shoes, congratulations on the sub 16 for the 5k. I know you've been working hard at that for, well, a number of years. So when I saw you finally done it, I think you've done it a few times now over the last sort of few months, haven't you? So yeah, congratulations on that. That must have felt pretty good.
Thank you, mate. Yeah, I think over the last few years I've really kind of focused on the longer distance, and I've never really had a grip on fueling. I've kind of persisted with one fueling brand foolishly and never really swapped it out. So I thought I'm going to skip a marathon in spring this year, and kind of like I did Abingdon last year in October, and I thought, okay, well let's target a February half, and then I can come down and enjoy all the March and April and May races that I can never normally do when I'm marathon training, and then basically set myself 4 5k races, and chipped away at them every single one. So it started with a 16:03, 15:57, 15:53 and 15:44. So very happy to get that monkey off my back.
Yeah, that's a big chunk to take off as well, especially over the 5k. I often find with the longer stuff you can take 30 seconds, a minute off here and there, but as you get more and more experienced as a runner, the 5k, I find that when I PB in the 5k, it's always by a couple of seconds. So for you to take off 20 or nearly 20 seconds there, then that's really good going. But today we are talking all things beginner running shoes over on my Shoe Chat Sunday. So first of all, thank you for being a guest on episode 3. I wanted to maybe dial things back a little bit to when you first got into running, and I was curious to hear if you can remember what your first pair of running shoes was, what year it was, and any fond memories you had in those shoes.
Absolutely. I think, so probably like a lot of people, it was like a New Year's resolution, 2015, so this is my 10th year running now. Played football for 9 years before that, kind of got a little bit stale with it and wanted a new challenge. So like a lot of people, I just laced up whatever trainers I had, and if I'm honest with you, they could well have been some high-tech Silver Shadows. Because and for a lot of people that are of my generation, you'll know exactly what they are. They used to be my PE shoes, and I'm sure I used those just for a couple of runs, but the first actual proper running shoes I bought were either Asics Gel Zakaras 4s or Asics Gel Phoenix 6s. There is a review on my YouTube channel of some Gel Phoenix or the Zakaras. Both of them I think are on there from 7 or 8 years ago. But I had the previous pair to those. I didn't start doing running shoe reviews until I was a couple of years into my channel. I used to just live in the Asics outlet shop. We've got one in Gloucester, not too far from us. I used to be able to go and pick up a pair of running shoes, 20, 30 quid. It was brilliant, not like today's prices. And those, I think it was one of those two that were my first.
I was also an Asics guy. My first pair of running shoes was a Gel Cumulus, something like that. So I think a lot of people when they're getting into running, especially maybe sort of 5-10 years ago, would go look to Asics or a Brooks, a more traditional running shoe brand, whereas nowadays I guess there's a lot more options on the market. So fast forward to 2025, what shoe would you currently be recommending to, say, somebody dropping you a message in your Instagram DMs or in your YouTube comments for completely beginner runners, somebody who's just getting into running and they want their first pair of running shoe that they're going to basically be doing all of their different training runs, whether they're doing intervals yet, I'm not too sure, but they're going to need a shoe that basically can cover all bases. What would be a shoe that comes to mind at the moment?
I think it's quite a difficult one, really. There's a few that come to mind, but it's difficult in the fact that obviously when people start running, they're naturally going to have some imbalances and kind of kinks in their form, shall we say, and they're going to find along their journey that they need potentially maybe a bit more structure in the shoe, maybe not. And so you're trying to find that middle of the road shoe that's got a little bit of structure, but maybe not too much so that it's holding their foot in an unnatural way. I think you can't, first of all, there's a couple from Brooks that you can't overlook, and I think you can see why the Brooks Ghost is such a commonly recommended shoe in any running store. It's got kind of the best of both. Is this a 15 or this is the 16? So it's the previous model. It's built up enough to give enough stability, especially in the back section here, the heel counter. This is very rigid. So again, if you've got any instability in and around the heel area, this will hold it nicely. However, the cushion is not super firm and it kind of gives that nice middle of the road feeling. I feel like the glycerin is also another really solid option, bit beefier, bit more stacked, but again, really structured in the heel here. There's an absolutely minimal flexion. I think these are a bit more pricey, but I think Brooks are always a good option for entry level. Another one that I tried this year, and it would be Marmite. I think people would find it very hit and miss. I don't have it here with me, but is the On Cloud Surfer 2. I've tried a lot of on shoes. I've got I don't know if this is the Monster or the Hyper, I can't remember, but this is the Hyper. And these ones are obviously fantastic. I've been a massive fan of these. But the Surfer has been a really interesting entry-level shoe. I've got a spider on my glasses as well, trying to crawl down. Look at that. It's a firm midsole. It's maybe borderline too firm for some people. But I feel like what that On Cloud Surfer does, again, similar to the other shoes we've talked about, very structured heel counter, very stout, good padding around here. So you really do feel like your ankle's locked in. The foam, as I said, a little bit too firm for some people. As a bigger runner, I prefer firmer foam. And do you know, I've logged upwards of 160 miles in that shoe already. It is literally On's entry-level shoe, basic. But I find it better than some of their more premium shoes. It just does a really good job, and I feel like it gives my foot really good stability. I think those are the ones that really come to mind. And finally, I think the Puma Forever Run Nitro. If you look at the Puma, have two good offerings of daily trainers, the Velocity and the Forever Run. And the Forever Run just adds, again, a bit more structure in there. It's got a bit more power tape on the upper, which just holds your foot in place nicely. As opposed to the Velocity. That has got some on it, but again, the Velocity doesn't quite have that built-up heel counter to hold your ankle stable. Again, I feel like the Forever Run is a really good option.
The options that you went through there would be, ideal for somebody just getting into running, because I think something that's often overlooked in beginner running shoes is that element of structure. I totally agree with you on the Clouds. Was it the Cloud Surfer 2 from On?
Yeah, Cloud Surfer 2, yeah.
Yeah, I've also enjoyed running in that shoe. It's also a good one in the gym because it's a little bit more stable than some of the other midsoles out there. It's a little bit firmer. So if somebody's looking for a shoe maybe that they want to start running in, but they also want to do some gym stuff, then I think the Cloud Surfer might be a decent option as well. So yeah, some interesting picks. Final question, and then I'll let you get on with your day, is I was wondering if you had any advice that you would give to yourself, say if you were completely new to running, based on the experience that you now have, having been a runner for 10 years, whether that be picking running shoes, in your training, like what would you say to your younger self?
I think I probably did what a lot of people did when they start running, especially coming off like another sport like football, which is where I just went out and ran every run hard. And I feel like a lot of people do that. And it really took until 6 to 12 months into my journey to actually really start to sort of read, watch, listen, understand how I should properly be training. And although that's taken a lot of years to refine, that first initial, I should be running some of my runs easy, and what is easy and how do I understand that? I wish I'd have learnt that sooner, because I feel like that set me up in my early years to do quite intense training. And it's not really until the last, I'd say 3 or 4 years where I've properly got my efforts in the right place, and that's been learnt through breathing patterns and understanding kind of like when I feel like I'm pushing a bit harder, when I go from a 4-4 breathing pattern to a 3-3 to a 2-2, and then obviously lots of races and understanding, I think I'm not going to be able to hold this effort to the end, I need to dial it back, or I think I can hold this effort. So persisting early with running by feel and not getting caught up in any data. Again, my first year I started with a Casio stopwatch. I'm sure we all have those Casio stopwatches in primary school. They cost like $5, and it was just a basic start stopwatch. I just used to run to time. But definitely understanding that you need to dial everything back, and you need to just go out there and run slow for a lot of the time. That would be the first thing. I think number 2 is the comparison element. I used to train with some friends quite a lot of, and have done throughout my 10 years. And I've got friends that have been running the same time as me, like for example, Matt, the Welsh runner. Obviously, look at him. We are the same age. We started running at the same time. His PBs are far in excess of mine. He's got a natural talent. It's kind of understanding and not getting frustrated that I might not be built the same way as someone else. I've definitely not got a natural running frame. So appreciate your own journey more so than looking at other people and going, well, they're quicker than me, so why aren't I there? What am I doing wrong? Again, just kind of taking that away. I used to do that all the time and get so frustrated. The people I trained with were just naturally gifted. They would absolutely like beat me in all the races. Again, maybe some old people from watching my channel from a while ago will remember Lee. I used to run a lot of races with Lee. He, again, just used to obliterate me all the time. He used to run less mileage than me. He was fantastic. So comparison is definitely the thief of joy. Just appreciate your own stepping stones. We're all built different. We're all either gifted or not. But the people that work hard will get further than the people that are a bit gifted but don't really put the effort in. So just kind of appreciate your own journey and just keep taking those stepping stones.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you in terms of like when I got into running, I didn't really know how to structure my training. So I think had I had some more advice on like 80% or whatever of your runs need to be easy, you can do a little bit of interval work and you sort of like your tempo stuff, but they're not really the elements that are going to sort of make you progress in the early stages of becoming a runner or getting into running. It's the very easy zone 2 boring stuff that you have to just do, gradually build things up to then be able to then train the faster paces and the stuff later on. So I think that's some really good advice, and yeah, totally agree with you when it comes to comparison as well. I think the main thing of when I was getting into running is just making sure that I was enjoying like the process of training, and whether that was training with other people or training by myself, it's just making sure that, yeah, you focus on your own progression and don't try and, like, it's great to go along to an athletics club and try and keep up with the top runners every now and again, but you just got to remember, like, they might have been running for like longer than you, or they might be more suited to the shorter distances. So yeah, staying in tune with your own progression is definitely some good advice as well.
Absolutely.
Well, I think that is a great little conversation to add into this week's episode. Good luck with the 10K race on Monday, did you say? Have you got a time goal, or is it just another race sort of like building up to the marathon season?
Yeah, just another race, but just a kind of a stepping stone. Like during my 5K block, obviously I was doing all the specific work. I was in that race phase. I got down to that time, had some time off, easy running back in. 2 weeks later, did another 5K and ran 16:01. So like, you notice it when you're not doing the specific work, but it's important to kind of like periodize your training and block it off and put an end point to certain things. And so I'm at that point now where I had finished that block, did a 2 or 3 weeks of nice and easy work with a few small workouts, and now I'm kind of in that build phase, training to train, getting my body ready for the specific phase, which will start in 4 weeks or so. So I haven't touched speed work since May. I've been doing obviously double threshold work, so I've been doing some strong work, but definitely no 10K work. So I'm just going to go out there and try and race for a place rather than for a pace, and just see what happens. It could be a mess.
Nice. Before we started recording, you said you've done 5 weeks of consistent double threshold training. So based off when I've done that myself, I know that 10K and half marathon shape is very closely linked to the sort of threshold work. So I'm sure that'll have set you up for a good one. But yeah, thanks again for your time. And yeah, stay in touch, and I'll be checking Strava to see how you got on.
Appreciate it, mate. Thank you so much for having me.
I realise I have recommended 6 pairs of running shoes to new runners, which may not be the most helpful of advice. If I had to narrow it down to one shoe, the shoe that I would recommend as my pick would be the Adidas Supernova Rise 2. I just think of all the shoes that I've featured in today's video, it offers the most well-rounded package for a beginner runner. The price point is very good. It's a versatile shoe, offers plenty of cushioning, and also with those rods in this shoe from Adidas, it offers a very supportive ride, which I think is also important for somebody just getting into running. So if I had to crown the winner for the best shoe for new runners, I would pick the Adidas Supernova Rise. And that pretty much summarizes today's video. Thanks again for tuning in to Shoe Chat Sundays. Let me know in the comments what guest you would like to see on the next episode coming next month. But until next time, aspire to run, run to inspire, and I'll see you again soon.